We're going to make chicken curry, and we're actually going to incorporate some molecular gastronomy into the traditional recipe. First, what we're going to do is we're going to sear the chicken. I'm going to toss it in spices and then put it into a bag and sous vide it in a thermal circulator. But the sauce itself, we're going to make traditional way. So to make the sauce, I have the ingredients written down, but it's just a puree of tomatoes, onions, garlic, and ginger. And then you get a pot. I use a tall pot because this is dangerous as heck. And there's about a 1/4 inch of oil in there that's smoking right now. And you pour it in, and you're going to hear it. You heard it. But if you don't do it that way, it doesn't come out. And honestly, I learned that because the technique is identical to making Mexican albóndigas. And I learned it's very important to make the oil hot and pour it in straight. But you use a tall pot because it splatters like crazy, like it is right now. And then, like in some of the earlier videos, you cook it until the oil separates from the liquid in the tomatoes. So all that's cooking, what I'm going to do is sear the chicken in cast iron, which is my favorite thing to cook in, because it stays hot. It gets really hot, but it also stays hot. It sears best. So this chicken is going to sit here and sizzle for a minute. And one of the things about searing is that once you put it in the pan, don't touch it for a while. A lot of cooks, amateur cooks, will immediately start playing with the chicken and moving it around. That's a mistake, because what we're trying to do is form a crust on the chicken. And once it forms that crust, it won't stick anymore. In this pot in the back, what I have is I trimmed all the chicken because we do this as healthy as possible. And all the trimmings are back here. And what I did was I'm browning them. I'm keeping all the chicken fat that's rendering out, but I'm browning them. And then I'm going to glaze this pan with double chicken stock, which I have right here. And when we need to add water to this sauce, which we will at some point to loosen it up, instead of using water, what we're going to do is we're going to use this liquid I have here, which is intensely flavored with chicken. And this is the non-traditional part of this recipe. Normally they add water. But what this does is adds another level of chicken flavor, and also doing that, it adds a lot of umami. Umami is the fifth sense. Everyone used to think we only have 4 senses. We have one more that's called umami, and basically it's the best way to describe it is it's that savory sense. It's that lusciousness in your mouth when you eat meat, when you eat mushrooms. And that's what we're adding to the sauce. And it just adds another level of flavor. So the chicken, as it's cooking, you don't want to touch it until you start to see brown around the edges, because that means you have the crust. And if we do have brown, it won't stick anymore. See, this is starting to loosen up because it has that crust on it. So we're just going to leave that for a minute. Inside this pot, you can see we have the oil is starting to separate a little bit. But what we're going to do is cook it down until some of the liquid is gone. And then we're going to add, instead of water, we're going to add that double chicken stock to it. Since this is already starting to separate, what we're going to do is start adding spices. And the spices we have in here, we have garam masala, a significant amount of turmeric, and a little bit of red chili powder. This is going to be the base for our chicken curry. The other thing about this chicken that I'm searing is I'm not going to cook it all the way, because I'm going to finish it in a thermal circulator so we get a perfect texture. So we're only going to sear it on one side, like this. we have this browning, and the browning adds flavor. The browning actually is the caramelization of the proteins in the meat. The technical term for it is it's called the Maillard effect, but basically that's what adds a lot of flavor. All this browning we have here is adding flavor to it. It's the reason you sear a steak. It's the reason you bake bread uncovered. That brown crust on bread is a result of the Maillard effect. But like I said, I'm not going to cook it all the way. I only cooked it about maybe 30%. And now what I'm going to do is toss it. Some of the spices, these are the same spices that I put into the sauce. I'm going to coat it really well with those spices. I'm also going to add a little bit of this, a little bit of this sauce. The sauce itself is not done, but I just want to make sure that I get some of these flavors into the chicken. And then here's the cool part, we're going to put it in a bag. And you could use a food sealer for this or a fry-back machine for this, but it's not necessary in this instance because we just want to get those flavors in the bag. And what we do, instead of using the food saver, we're going to use, it's called the water displacement method, but basically all we're doing is getting all the air that we can out of the bag. First I squish it, and then I have a large vessel of water here. I put it into the water and slowly push it down. And what happens is the water pushes all the air out of the bag so that now it'll sink, which is exactly what we want. And now we're going to put it over here into the thermal circulator. I have a thermal circulator set at 152 because that's my favorite temperature. These are boneless, skinless chicken thighs. And at 152 for 90 minutes, what happens is the proteins coagulate exactly to the point where I want, so where it's tender and it still melts in your mouth. And that's it for now. Thank you. All right, so this chicken curry sauce has been cooking for about half an hour. And what we're looking for is, as the water evaporates, the oil starts to separate on the edges, so we know it's ready. At this point, what we do is we add the yogurt. Typically, you'll add more yogurt than this, but I'm only going to add probably about 4 ounces of yogurt to this, just for the flavor. We're trying to keep this on the healthier side, but yogurt adds a wonderful, acidic flavor and tanginess in your mouth that we definitely need in here. So, what I do is I whip it in until it's all one color again. And then what we're going to do is cook it down again for probably about another 10 minutes or so. And what happens is the oil will start to separate again. And at that point, we're ready to add the chicken to it. All right, thank you.